I was born in Chicago, Illinois, to the sweetest mom, the most kind mom that a person could ever have, and to a father who was, well, not very kind or sweet, but very loving and very influential in my life. I had two older brothers who all had different mothers, but we were raised together. My mom was their mom, and their moms were my mom too. From as early as I could remember, my dad was the center of everyone's world, and he demanded that we all be together and show love. Since I was the youngest at the time, my mom was the mom of the house, but on special occasions, like Dad's birthday, all the moms and all the brothers came over. Now, don't get me wrong, it wasn't like they were sister wives or anything like that. But they got along well enough for me and my brothers to have a great relationship. And I think that they knew that our dad was a pretty good dad, so they put up with his larger-than-life antics. As a result of this dynamic in my life, which I thought was normal, I grew up wanting to be just like Dad and my brothers. I wanted to do everything they did. I even remember when I was a little girl being mad because Dad and the boys got to pee standing up. We were outside playing, they'd go pee behind a tree, but I had to go all the way home. I didn't think that was fair at all. And when I complained about being a girl, my mom would say, God created you to be a loving, sweet, kind young lady. And my dad would say, yeah, God made you a girl, but I'm gonna make you better than any girl God ever created. He said I had to be tough and independent. I had to be more like him than like the average woman. He said I was born to be his legacy. He said I was blood of his blood, mind of his mind, and name of his name. Okay, let me explain that. While me and my two brothers were definitely blood of his blood, we were his biological children, my dad said I was the only one that hit all three. My oldest brother had his mother's last name, so he wasn't name of his name. And my second brother was and is still very kind and sweet and thought people were generally good, so he definitely wasn't mind of his mind. But me, I was all three. My name is Kristie with a K, and my dad called me K-Mo. I think most people, or I thought most people, couldn't be trusted, and I was gonna get them before they got me, mind of his mind, and again, I was blood of his blood. So he was happy, and so was I. By middle school, I had earned a reputation of being a cute girl because my mom dressed me all cute and frilly, but who liked to fight because of my dad. I was the only daughter of the guy in the neighborhood who had 2 master's degrees, yet he hung out with gangbangers and thugs and the likeliness of that. So he taught me to be able to control myself in every environment. My dad would say, you don't have to fight, but if you need to fight to protect yourself or anybody else, you better. I found opportunities to live out exactly what he taught me. Like the time there was a mean girl in our neighborhood who kept bullying my friend. I mean, she was truly the mean girl. She had the long hair, the cute clothes, and she even had a pink Sony Walkman. Ugh. But usually I ignored her, but she wouldn't stop picking on my friend. So one day I just went to her house, she came to the door, and I just started beating her as much as I could until her dog came out and chased me home. Well, I wish I could say that was the last time I got into a fight with someone, but it wasn't, and we don't have all night, so I'll skip that. But I will tell you that being aggressive and being angry had become my default. As I grew up and got to high school, things had changed a little bit. My parents had separated, and I started to see my dad wasn't always right about everything. In some ways, he had become like that guy that he always warned me about, someone that couldn't be trusted. But he was still my dad. He loved me and my brothers, my 2 older ones, and now my younger one. Yep, another brother with what? Another mother. As I prepared to graduate from high school and move on to college, I was excited. Looking forward to having a good conversation with my parents. You know how most parents tell their kids, go off to college, have fun, call home, stay out of trouble. Well, the conversation with my dad went like this. If you want me to pay your tuition, you got to get a fulfilled prescription for birth control pills and a bond card. I was like, what? I'm not sexually active and you know I've never been in any trouble. He said, if you want your bills paid, do what I tell you. So I did what he told me. When I got to college, I did see some of the things that my dad and my brothers warned me about. I saw girl after girl getting her feelings hurt, and guy after guy getting away with it. I planned to mind my own business and just take care of me. But one night at a party, I saw a friend of mine get into an argument with her boyfriend. And like I said, I had planned to stay out of it until I saw him hit her. All I could do at that point was just run over there and start swinging. And then, thank God, the lights came on and somebody broke us up. Unfortunately, that was not my last physical altercation. Notice, no longer fighting, just having physical altercations. But it was one that made me realize that I needed to slow down and I needed to work on my behavior. I still wanted to protect myself and others, but I had to learn to do it in a different way. I also began a relationship with a guy on campus at that time. We were good friends. We talked about everything. We talked about God, we talked about church, family, and the future. We even talked about the fact that I like to fight. Now, of course, you can hear in my brain my dad telling me this guy was just like all other guys. He was not going to be any different from the guys that my dad warned me about. But this guy was different. He told me it was important for me to be who I was, no matter what. But he did encourage me to think about controlling my anger a little bit more. During this time, I was also taking education classes and learning more about child development and why I was the way that I was. I knew I needed to make changes. I wanted to become emotionally healthy adult who could use my passion and my experiences to help kids like myself. My world was changing, and so was my thinking. Over the next couple of years of college, this guy and I went from being really good friends to dating. And then something really crazy happened. He asked me to marry him. I was totally surprised because although we had been dating a while, we were still very different. We came from very different families. In his family, women catered to men, and most of the men in his family were pastors. And as you know, I was raised to never cater to a man. As a matter of fact, even though we went to church, my dad taught me that most pastors were no good. This guy, not only was he the son of the pastor, he was a grandson of a pastor. This stuff was generationally in his blood. So while I was fully in love with him, I could not be married to a pastor. First of all, my dad wouldn't allow it. And secondly, I still like to fight. But this guy, he promised me that he would not become a pastor and that he loved me just the way I was. But dealing with my dad was not going to be that easy. He was not happy when I told him that I was deciding to get married. He was even more unhappy when I told him that I was planning to take on my future husband's last name. I was losing my place at the top of my dad's list. I wasn't his legacy anymore. He said that I'd always be blood of his blood, but I was no longer mind of his mind, and I was choosing not to be name of his name. He made it clear that he loved me, but he couldn't understand why I was changing so much. What he didn't understand is that I didn't understand it either. Although I had not had any physical altercations for a long time, sorry, I got dry mouth here. Life was not all flowers and daffodils. I was still who I was on the inside, and anger and aggression were still a part of me. That's what good friends do. I was getting much better, and things were going pretty good with this guy who was now my husband, except he had something to tell me. He told me that he was deciding to become a pastor. I was like, oh, well, this was fun while it lasted. But I told you that I could never be married to a pastor, just wouldn't work for me. He reassured me that I would be okay. While he never asked me to change, other people did. People from my family, people from church, well-meaning people. They told me how to dress, pretty church dresses, not. They told me how to act. And I really wanted to make everybody happy, so I worked really hard to control my old self. But every now and then, who my dad called me to be kind of would sneak in. Like that time I was at a church event out of town, And I was standing in the back holding our baby, listening to my husband talk from the podium, and I overheard a lady talking negatively about my husband. She said, "Oh, he's a fake and a phony. He's not all that. He wants to change everything. I can't wait till he falls on his flat face." Now, most of you would have just ignored her. But I couldn't ignore her. That little girl who liked to fight inside of me, she woke up. I walked really close to her. I whispered in her ear. I said, "You are lucky that I'm holding my sleeping baby and that I am a transformed child of God. But let me warn you, if I hear you speak negatively about my husband like that ever again, you will get much more than a whisper from me." I just stood there. I'm not sure if I was waiting to see what I would do or what she would do, but I just stood there thinking, "Oh, I'm so proud of myself. I didn't hit her." Whew. And then I thought, "Oh man, I just threatened this lady at a church event." I knew I had a long way to go, but I was still proud of myself. I was somewhere between rejoicing and repenting. I don't know. The blessing was I was able to talk to my husband about it, and he appreciated what I did and what I didn't do. I was also able to talk to my dad about it. He was disappointed that I didn't just ask somebody to hold the baby so I could smack the lady, but he was still proud of me. But most importantly, I was able to talk to God about it. For the longest time, I thought I needed God to totally change me so that I would never act like my dad taught me to act. But what God made clear to me was that he loved me just like I was, and that as long as I committed to being like him, my heavenly Father, he would help me control all of the behaviors and the actions that were negative. So while I am still such a daddy's girl, my life goal is to live and love like my heavenly daddy and to make him proud.